Sorry about that. Hadn't cleared my memory there. So the phone shut off. So we're in the kitchen and Dad's taking his boots off. He's relating to Mom what had happened. And I'm peeking out the door window. I remember the sky being black, even though it wasn't like anywhere near twilight. And I saw the lightning strike the barn. And you could see it race across the haymow through the cracks in the old barn boards. Um, Father raced for the barn, mother for the phone, and the next thing I remember, there's men running for the barn and women flooding into the house. My mom got my sister and her husband to come from across town and get me out of there, despite my protests. But what use was I? I was a hindrance, of course. I remember peering out the back seat of the car, and the farm or the barn was just, the flames were to the sky. It seemed, and shadowy figures running willy nilly, and cars parked haphazardly all throughout the drive as people raced in. And the fire truck had come in and fallen off the terrace. It was sitting at 45 degrees, stuck on the front lawn. We could still drive past it. It wouldn't have been of any use, anyways. And the road was flooded with cars on both sides, people coming both to help and to watch. What a spectacular thing it is to watch a bank barn burn. So, my next memory, returning the next day in the afternoon, headed towards dinner time, I guess, something like that. It was still raining, and people were still hanging around. The barn was, of course, gone. And sorry, getting a bit emotional. Hadn't seen that coming. The ruin, I remember it smoldering and steaming, and it stunk. Something terrible. The hay crop was lost. The barn wasn't insured. Dad had to sell the dairy cattle. And we built a small barn for the horses in conjunction with what we called the loafing barn and the tack shed. I should have backtracked a little here. The other half of the barn from the dairy cattle, he'd had pigs. And 2 weeks earlier, I remember this from later, of course, he'd sold the pigs. He'd gone out of them. I think it was a failed endeavor. Excuse me. And in the mayhem, getting the cows out, the dad said the barn boards were burning above them. So the men tried to get the cows out. And horses will run back into a burning barn. He had to take the pitchfork tines to old Jojo. He just kept coming back in. Excuse me. And in all this madness, they'd forgotten there was a cow and her calf in a pen on the former pig side of the barn. She'd been forgotten about. I don't know why she would have been in there. Injury or something, perhaps. Maybe the calf was a bit ill. I don't know. Someone had to lean in the barn and shoot her and the calf. He couldn't risk sending a man in at that point, right? Now, the next year and in following years, for me and my little buddies, the barn was, at first it was an archaeological dig. We'd rake through and find a saddle horn or a brass piece of a bridle that had melted, a shovel head twisted, whatever. When we excavated the cow and her calf's bones, that was fascinating. We cleared a space on the rubble of the floor, tried to assemble them like a dinosaur, I guess. I remember going into the house with the cow's jawbone and the calves, and oddly enough, Mom wasn't impressed with that. Crazy. The barn rubble will come into play in several other stories, as do several other inanimate objects. The little tractor and the stream. Is the stream an inanimate object? But anyways, yeah, I think that covers the barn burning. Again, it wasn't insured. We went out of the dairy cows, and this is when now we can get to the horse stories as their numbers increased as Dad pursued his love of the equine beasts. So yeah, I think that covers that story. Oh, sorry, it's in two parts. My phone had shut off. Did I say that at the start? No notes on this one. I'm just going off the top of my head. Oh, hey, some of the comments on Storytime with Uncle Carl. Really touching. I do appreciate them, and I'm glad you enjoy them.